Nobody other than OPEC is ripping off the United States like China. Nobody.
So what do we do?
OPEC is number one. China is number two. China is stealing all our jobs. We're rebuilding China. You know, 15 years ago, China was like, forget it. It was so backward. Now China's going to replace us in 12 years or less as the great economic power in the world. If I would have told you that 2 years ago, 5 years ago, you would have said, it's crazy.
Their
I wouldn't have
economy
said
would
it.
still have to more than triple to
Excuse
take
me.
over ours.
They're making all our products. They're taking all our jobs. And then they loan the money back and we pay them interest. It's an amazing phenomenon. China is an abuser of the United States. China is not our friend.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, who are the real enemies of the state? As President Trump's latest tweet seemed to call for an all-out trade war against China to begin, we are going to take a look back at what China has done historically to undermine our country's ability to govern and to infiltrate and to subvert our democratic processes. We're going to take a look at that, plus a whole bunch of other breaking news stories and older Q posts that have told us everything. So we have everything. You guys are going to want to stick around to check it out. Hey guys, if you're going to be in Miami this October 10th through 12th and you want to check out an incredible event with people like Donald Trump Jr., Sarah Sanders, Charlie Kirk, Jason Chaffetz, Matt Gaetz, and many others, I encourage you to check out the link in the description for the American Priority Conference in Miami. Now, this is going to be an incredible event. We're going to have a charity golf tournament. We're going to have a charity poker tournament. We're going to have a bunch of different guest speakers, including some really important people. So I really think you guys should go check out the link in the description and sign up and come meet me down in Florida this October 10th through 12th in Miami at Trump National at Doral on the Blue Monster, for those of you who know golf. And we're going to have a great time. Again, special speakers include Donald Trump Jr. and Sarah Sanders and many others. So I encourage you all to check that out, and I hope to see you there. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. You guys know the drill. Thanks to everyone who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Obviously, we still have no new Q posts. Code Monkey even has come out on Twitter just recently, I think it was today, and said that he concurs with the September 5th deadline for when the 8chan website will be back up and running. And once the 8chan website's up and running, then we will have presumably more Q posts. But with that in mind, as I always say, we have a lot to cover, a lot of news. We're going to take a look at President Trump's latest tweet storm going after China, calling on all American businesses to seek other places for their business outside of China, initiating a very, very hot phase of the trade war. And China is not going to back down. That's why this is going to come to a head, and we are going to prevail. Mark my words on that. We're going to talk about that. Whole bunch of other news stories. There's a lot to cover, so you guys want to stick around and check that out. But as always, look, I got to remind y'all, hey, you see it right here. If you want to help the channel, watch these last videos. Get caught up. Share them on your social media. You know, some videos you can tell, I hate to say it, it's just completely obvious. If you put certain I don't want to give away too many secrets about how I do what I do and all that, but if you put certain words into the title, you see the algorithmic suppression kick on immediately, and the views are suppressed, and it's just, you know, hey, this is the world we live in. There is an obvious algorithmic suppression being put forward by Google. It's a bias based on their own political beliefs because they want to be the arbiters of truth. They want to be publishers. They want to violate their the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, which they agreed to, where they would be objective, open platforms. Now they've become publishers and aggregators of what they think is better content. So the point is, they're suppressing this content on this channel. They're suppressing many other channels as well. And it's being exposed every single day by people like whistleblowers coming forward from these big tech companies, people at Project Veritas, Judicial Watch, and a bunch of other organizations are continuing to work to expose the truth about what's happening here. And these big tech companies are going to continue to do that. So how do you fix it? How do you fight it? Go down, hit the share button on this video, share it on your social media. And if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon the Great Awakening? Please watch this video, share this on your social media, because look, that's got a lot of great information, and you can share it with your friends and family if you want to give them an idea of what this all is about. So, another story here, Jeffrey Epstein taken off suicide watch after examination by, quote, a doctoral level psychologist, unquote, DOJ says. Oh, well, that's so fascinating. You know, it's just so reassuring to know that the people in charge were able to make that kind of diagnosis that he should be taken off of it. It's not like Q has told us in the past all about therapists and psychologists and their connection to these deep state programs that have been used for mind control and other nefarious activities. For instance, like after the New Zealand shooting, when Q gave us this little post from put together by one of the Anons, where it's showing the weapon that was used by the New Zealand shooter. And then it was saying, it was pointing to the fact that John Podesta just so happened, coincidentally, to be in New Zealand 5 days before the attack. And not to mention the fact that one of the main takeaways from his visit was that New Zealand was a, quote, big juicy target, unquote, for a cyber attack by Russia or China. Now that to me is a threat. I mean, it's a veiled threat. Let's put it that way. Because this guy knows very well that he was the one who was working with the Russians and the Chinese to sell out our country to the highest bidder. Because look, what's happened, and this is something we're going to cover here in this episode, is that the globalists picked the Chinese communists to take over as the global power, because they like their authoritarian system. They like the system that has been put in place by the Communist Chinese Party, where they actually allow things like bribery. They may not publicly say they do, but they do. The whole system in China is corrupt. Every Communist Party official is on the take, and the whole Communist Party is just a big scam and racket of influence and corruption that has been going on since Mao started, back with the Mao brigades, where they went and rounded up all the intellectuals and summarily either imprisoned them or executed them in order to start this communist utopia, which has turned into a half communist, half capitalist hellscape, where it is the dystopia that was described in 1984 by George Orwell, where not only are the officials the ones becoming insanely rich off of the economy, the supposedly free and open economy, but then they're also the same ones putting into place the mass surveillance systems and social credit score systems, which are meant to suppress the people and keep them under the thumb of the Communist Party. Here's a great read. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Martin Geddes put out this story, the hashtag The Storm, how to prepare for global corruption purge. It's an interesting read. I just thought I'd mention it. You guys should check it out. It'll be in the description. Another piece of news, David Koch, one of the conservative Koch brothers, has died at age 79. Now, there's not much to this story. I guess he passed away from pancreatic cancer. And the fact is, we all know David Koch, one of the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers basically took over lobbying and politics for the conservative side and have been doing so for quite some time. And their influence has been seen across the country and the globe as far as influencing politics and other events. But the one thing that stood out to me in this story, which, is what it is, saying that this was a statement released by Charles Koch, the brother, saying that his brother was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer more than 2 decades ago, and that he's been alive since. And they say anyone who worked with David knew this, It says 27 years ago, David was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer and given a grim prognosis of a few years to live. David liked to say that a combination of brilliant doctors, state-of-the-art medications, and his own stubbornness kept the cancer at bay. We can all be grateful that it did, because he was able to touch so many more lives. Yeah. So what I think is interesting, though, is that this just proves that if you have money, the cures exist. I'm going to put it out there. The reality is, if you have enough money, all of the cures pretty much exist, except probably a few. And why do I say that? Because I'm actually intimately aware with prostate cancer and its progression and how it gets diagnosed and what it does, being that I've had family that have dealt with that and passed away from it quite rapidly, actually, unfortunately. And I can tell you right now that for somebody to be diagnosed with a advanced stage prostate cancer, we're talking about probably stage 3 or stage 4, and to live for 27 years, that's unheard of. Almost unheard of. I mean, of course, there are statistically, I think it's like 10% chance, and then, recovery is that, and there's a sort of the cancer going away and then coming back and so on, and then it metastasizes and spreads and it can spread to the liver and other organs. But the point is, all it takes is to be a billionaire, and then you can, live 27 years longer than most people, just because you got all that money. So I just thought I'd point that out. Daily Beast putting out more fake news. Not really fake news as much as it is just more propaganda, going after and attacking a college professor who was a patriot and showed a QAnon video in class. And the takeaway from the story, which I thought was hilarious, is the students were mocking him, saying that he's a crazy person who believes that JFK Jr. is alive and all this stuff. But then they wrote him and asked for comment, and he wrote them back saying only this: I think I only have one response to give you. It's a question, and it's 3 words. Who is Q? Fake news reporters won't ask the question. They're getting it every day. Also, another fake news story from the Daily Beast. Federal agencies shared links to white nationalist conspiracy websites multiple times this year. So what this goes on to say is that there was some VDare website, and of course, the fake news BuzzFeed News, the conspiracy theorists at BuzzFeed News are the ones who are finding this out and reporting it. It's hilarious. It's just like a he said, she said crazy person who comes out and says, oh yeah, well, you shared the Epoch Times. You're a conspiracy theorist. Oh man, they're just doing everything they can to try to malign people who think outside the mainstream bubble that has been created for them to draw a narrative for the sheeple to follow. But if you're standing up against that and seeking alternative sources of coverage of the information that's being made available, the news, if you will, then you're obviously going to be associated with white nationalism and called a conspiracy theorist. That's pretty much their go-to. Never forget on November 4th how General Flynn did make it very clear that Spirit Cooking and Hillary are connected. Just thought I'd throw that in there for the Daily Beast to watch their heads explode when they watch that. All right, now Ruth Bader Ginsburg underwent 3 weeks of radiation for malignant tumor discovered on her pancreas, another set of pancreatic cancer, and another example of somebody living much longer than the average because they have either money or in this case, power and influence and a little bit of money, I'm sure. So this is very fascinating. Q's told us all about Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the past, saying what are the doctors currently treating or who are the doctors currently treating RBG? What are other former current senior political heads are they affiliated with? What off-market drugs are being provided to RBG in order to sustain minimum daily function? What is the real medication diagnosis or medical diagnosis of RBG? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? The clock is ticking. Panic and DCQ. So a lot of the anons went crazy connecting the fact that RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's got the pancreatic cancer, to the fact that the Koch brother just died of pancreatic cancer. Now they're saying that it's imminent that RBG's passing will be announced. I'm not sure I know about all that, but what I do know is that it seems as though she is on ice, which is just a form of chemotherapy, and she's probably on a very high dose of it. And this is the kind of stuff that can have really detrimental effects to the body and the brain, more specifically. So I think it's only a matter of time before she'll have to step down, merely because she won't be able to function anymore. But that's just speculation. There's nothing really yet to prove all of that. Another news story here. You guys let me know what you think about that down in the comments. AG William Barr announcing the big changes to the immigration courts. Now, this is not a big story. I just thought I'd share it. It is big in the sense that it's going to give these Executive Office of Immigration Review, which are the people who handle these rulings on asylum and all of that. It's going to give them a lot more power to quickly make rulings to deport these people who are here illegally, who are abusing the asylum system by claiming asylum when they actually don't need it. Here's another fascinating story: an act of insanity to stay in the U.S. This 63-year-old teacher has ditched Massachusetts to live in Panama. And just another example, in my opinion, Trump derangement syndrome. You know, you're going to go live in a third world country and live like a king, as it says here in this article, but you're still in a third world country, you know? It's like, what is that? There's a business thing where they say, like, 5% of a million is, 100% of nothing is nothing, but 5% of a million is a lot more. That's kind of what you're getting here in this story. I just thought it's interesting to move down. It's this woman moves down with her 2 adult daughters. It's too bad they don't have a basement to live in. I'm going to assume that President Trump is not their president. Here's another one. CNN. They're just continuing to pull off these miraculous feats of complete and utter journalistic dishonesty. Here they're hiring the former disgraced FBI head, Andrew McCabe, who spied and leaked and lied and was recommended by the IG for criminal charges. But perfect fit for CNN. I couldn't think of a better person to go work over at fake news CNN than the literal former head of the FBI, deputy head of the FBI, who has been recommended for charges by the Inspector General for leaking, lying, and spying. Can't make this stuff up, CNN. Keep going. You're doing great. So let's start here. This is where we're going to kind of wrap it up here, this last story. This is about China. Let's read President Trump's latest tweets. Our country has lost stupidly trillions of dollars with China over many years. They have stolen our intellectual property at a rate of hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and they want to continue. I won't let that happen. We don't need China, and frankly would be far better off without them. The vast amounts of money made and stolen by China from the United States year after year for decades will and must stop. Our great American companies are hereby ordered to immediately start looking for an alternative to China, including bringing your companies home and making your products in the USA. I will be responding to China's tariffs this afternoon. This is a great opportunity for the United States. Also, I am ordering all carriers, including FedEx, Amazon, UPS, and the Post Office, to search for and refuse all deliveries of fentanyl from China or anywhere else. Fentanyl kills 100,000 Americans a year. President Xi said this would stop. It didn't. Our economy, because of our gains in the last 2.5 years, is much larger than that of China. We will keep it that way. Okay, so first of all, fentanyl is a biological weapon that the Chinese are continuing to deploy against our country. Now, you might think that's a little bit drastic, but I don't think it is at all. It's a weaponization of the drug to kill and to... It's a reverse of the opium wars and what was happening there. When the British brought all of that opium to China and started selling them, the hoons and hoons, that's what they call it as a measurement of weight, hoons, Hoons. They were selling all of this opium to them. China finally revolted against the British, and then you had, the opium wars, which resulted in a bunch of different things in China. But the end result was China realized that opium was being used against them as a weapon. It was used to kill their people, to destroy families, to make people addicted and completely disinterested in anything. It's a form of, literally a biological weapon, in my opinion. And it's very deadly, and it's been used by the clandestine intelligence services as a tool for assassination. They would have a liquid form that the Mossad would use and pour into victims' ears. And once it took effect, then person would actually die. Also, there was an example in Russia where a terrorist had taken over a opera house, and the police used a bunch of fentanyl through the air vents to basically drug everyone in the building. And they had a bunch of Narcan where they were going to apply it to all of the innocent people as they came out of the opera house, but they didn't realize that people were going to come out of the side doors, and they ended up having a lot of people die. So there's a lot of history behind fentanyl and why it's such an important point to cover here. But this is even bigger. The story is that we're going against China. Q has told us in the past, China working with Google and Facebook and Twitter. China knows what Facebook is. Q has told us that. In many posts, Q has explained that China knows Facebook is LifeLog. China knows Facebook is an aggregator of information for the deep state, for the CIA. You are voluntarily, if you use Facebook, you're voluntarily giving all of your information, your friends, what you're thinking, where you're at, all of that stuff, what you buy, your secret message, your private messages. You're giving that all to the deep state voluntarily, right? Then China was working on these secret search engines, or Google's working on secret search engines in China, and Q's reminded us of the connections between all of these big tech companies and the evil that they represent, right? And we've heard all of this continually from QAnon about how LifeLog and China are all connected. Why? Mark Zuckerberg's wife, I'm pretty sure she's Chinese, isn't she? Oh, well, what do you know? Mark Zuckerberg, he probably is connected directly to intelligence agencies. He was put there. He was given Facebook. It wasn't created. And look, this is what we're seeing, right? You can go read through all these posts from Q. I mean, I'm giving you examples back in March of 2019 where Q just lays it out, why did China let Snowden travel through their country? Remember when he dumped all of that information about the U.S. government and basically blinded the NSA by exposing all of their surveillance tools to give the CIA a leg up so that they could continue their global cabal of criminal evil? Remember that? And China let him through to Russia? Well, why would they do that? Oh, is it perhaps because China is involved just as much? See, I want to read something from a friend of mine, and this is just an opinion, but it's very important. They say, war is coming in my eyes, and there's just no way to avoid it. I hope it doesn't, but I just don't see how it won't given the global climate, players involved, and what is going on in Europe. There is no way Russia allows fundamentalist Muslims to take control of nuclear countries. There is no way China allows America and Russia to come together. There is no way China allows North Korea to come together with America. There is no way the cabal allows America to recover and will continue to try to harm it. There is no way the new Marxist-controlled Mexico doesn't destabilize the region. Africa is in turmoil, and the list goes on literally everywhere. The cabal did their work and has broken the once peaceful world, and it shows every single region of the globe. War is coming, of that I have no doubt. This is my personal opinion, but one that is logical as the world, and the events have made it obvious. Now, this was written to me a while ago. This was written to me actually almost a year or over a year ago. And it's taken time for this to come to fruition, but it seems that we're reaching that point with this trade war in China. And if you'll remember some of the things that WikiLeaks did expose, we have Boston Scientific, that one that's making those robots that are probably going to be our overlords in some dystopian future. That company was investing, according to the WikiLeaks emails here, that were the GI files, were investing $150 million in China. And that's just one example of many, many others. Of course, New Zealand, one of the Five Eyes buddies who was helping to set up the president with the Russia hoax by helping with intelligence, Australia, UK, and New Zealand, they apparently are just signed up with China on this Belt and Road Initiative. Now, what is the Belt and Road Initiative? It's China's global plan to connect every part of the world by a road. That will be the new Silk Road, and it will lead to the next age of greatness for China, whatever. And of course, don't forget, remember this story back in 2018, October, how China used a tiny chip to infiltrate U.S. companies. Look at this. Look at the size of the chip they were using right here. It's just a speck on these boards, but they were using these chips to undermine massive data servers so that they could be easily corrupted and infiltrated by their own hackers. And then they're stealing that technology, as President Trump has pointed out, our intellectual property, which is worth probably in the trillions, and they're turning around and making companies like Huawei, which are basically just photocopies of companies like Apple, and they're literally stealing our entire nation's wealth, intellectual property, and everything out from underneath us. And President Trump's the first one to stand up against it. And all I hear from these leftists, extreme leftists, is that President Trump's an evil fascist. And I'm just like, you know what? We got to stand up to this aggression. This will not stand. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Obviously we had a lot to cover here. Everything, links will be in the description and everything if you want that. Watch these videos, share them on your social media, hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. Also, come find me on Twitter at JUSTINFORMED. We can have a conversation. Come give me a follow and we can talk over here. It's a great way to connect outside the channel. And don't forget to check out JUSTINFORMEDNEWS.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. Links to the Q stuff, different news sites, breaking news, and of course, the latest videos from the channel will be all available here. And as I always say, be brave. Download the Brave browser. There'll be a link in the description. What is the Brave browser? Are you using Google Chrome or Windows Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox right now to watch this video and you're on your desktop or laptop? Well, Brave is a new Internet Explorer. It's basically just as good as Chrome and Internet Explorer, but the difference is it blocks the ads and you support the channel. So every time you visit my YouTube channel, you'll be supporting my YouTube channel if you're using the Brave browser. So what you do is click the link in the description, click this button to download it, install it like you would any other program and run it just like you would any other web browser. And you'll see very quickly that it saves you a lot of time and grief when you're on the internet. And I always encourage everyone to go check that out. Also, a couple other ways you can help out the channel: Patreon, patreon.com, crowdfunding website. All you have to do is come here, click this button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation. You set it, forget it, and know you're helping create content on this channel. As I've said before, everything's demonetized by YouTube automatically. They've obviously put my channel into some sort of weird place, but that doesn't matter because with your help and your support, along with some outside advertisers, this channel is going to keep going regardless. So thank you so much to everyone that makes it possible. I also have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, I encourage everyone to go check that out. With that being said, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. I want to share a verse out of the book of Romans, and we're going to talk about it. It's out of chapter 8, verse 28 through 30. And I want to share these words. It says, "We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, those who are called according to his purpose. For those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brothers. And those he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified." Well, what does that mean? I know it sounds pretty vague, but it's simple. And that's what I love about it. The message is that for those who love God, all things work together for the good. And God has a plan. We have to trust in God's plan. I know I wake up some days and I go, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And that split second I have that thought, the first thing I always think is, God, I put it all to you. Because I can't control what they do. I can't control when the mainstream media writes fake libel news about me. I can't control when, people write threats to me online. I can't control when people attack me and just viciously try to destroy me for no reason other than they disagree. But what I can control is how I react. And that's a message I want to share with you guys. Remember, when you face adversity, if you're having a problem with somebody at work, or you're having a problem with somebody at school, or in your relationship at home with your family, remember, you have to trust in God's plan. And you have to put it to God. And remember that no matter how bad it seems, or difficult or tough, that if you put your life to God, he will help you find the answers that you are seeking. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Share that message with your friends and families, and use it in your own heart to deal with the problems that come up in our everyday lives. That's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I want to say thank you for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. Remember, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and hit it, tap it, bop it, twist it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content. That's going to be it from me. My name is Craig. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.